Okay, guys. So what we'll do is we'll just have a start. Any other students who come, they can join as we go along. We said we'll start at 3, so let's stick to that as much as we can. Hope everyone is doing well. My name is Rawaha from the TOP team. Just before we start the seminar, I just want to introduce TOP to you guys if you haven't already heard of us. We're a fairly new project started a few months ago. The reason why we do the work that we're doing is to kind of bridge the gap between people who are underprivileged or don't have the same resources that other students have for free. And just to help students out get into higher education and have the ease of conversion to higher education through our own experiences and our own lessons that we learned throughout the way. So I really appreciate if everyone could share the message of TOP, the word of it on the social media and stuff, so other students can benefit, just as you guys will benefit from today and other seminars that we will hold in the future. It means a lot. And we're open to any sort of feedback that you guys have from any of the seminars that you've attended. So today we're going to be going through a post-statement seminar. This is specifically for the medicine dentistry applicants. So we're going to give an overview and kind of detailed guidelines as to how everyone should be looking to write the personal statement, what makes a successful personal statement, and what universities and admissions people usually look at when they're reading personal statements, because there's a lot of misconceptions that students have, etc. So I'm going to pass over to Mariam, who's going to sort of introduce the general guidelines of the personal statement. Mariam?
Hi guys, I'm Mariam. I'm just so you know who I am going into my third year of medical studies at King's. So hopefully you realize I'm more relatable to you guys than you can imagine. Anyways, so the first thing you guys need to know about your personal statement is that there will be many drafts. And that's completely okay. So as you can see from the chat, some of you have done 2 drafts already, and some of you have applied last year. And when you were applying, you might have realized that you had to come up with loads of drafts. That's completely fine. It's normal to have loads of drafts, and in fact, it means that you have a lot of different drafts to pick from. So you might have like strengths in one of your drafts, and then in another one, like you might completely start from scratch for another one, and you realize actually this one's better. But you like a certain paragraph from this draft, and you can incorporate or embed it within your first draft. Like there's nothing wrong with having too many drafts. Well, not too many drafts, but there's nothing wrong with having a few drafts. If you have too many, then it just becomes a bit confusing, like what do you want to keep and stuff. But the best way that you can go about this is by brainstorming your ideas and putting them into paragraphs. You don't have to have them flowing straight away, but if you put them into paragraphs, then hopefully you know what your paragraphs should involve, and then you can like work into drafting it together. The other thing I would advise you guys is to make sure that when you're drafting out your personal statement, please make sure you proofread it and double check it so many times, because the amount of times you'd be surprised that medical students really struggle with grammar or putting commas in, and commas is one of the most popular mistakes that everyone makes, that they don't know where to put commas in. And I completely understand that we all have different backgrounds. Maybe some of us aren't as strong in English language as others, which is completely fine, but it might be worth spending a bit of time trying to familiarize yourself with how to put in commas and use semicolons. Semicolons is another one as well, effectively. So ideally, just make sure that you are using punctuation correctly. Another advice I would give at this point in time is to, if you know someone that's good at grammar, that's good at English, or has like done a degree in English or something, then use them, utilize them, ask them to help you, because that's medicine for you. You realize that a lot of medicine comes down from having links. So yeah, so if you know someone, ask them. And like we're all here as well to check your personal statement. So if you want to send them through to us, like we're more than happy to check them for you, hopefully. Okay, cool. So yeah, so there'll be many drafts. But they make, like in your drafts, please make sure it's not cliche, that you're not using something that's cliche. So obviously, a lot of us haven't actually had exposure to the medical field in a way a doctor would have. So you might have like a few personal encounters. Maybe your mum was at hospital, maybe you spend a lot of time at hospital, so you have a bit of insight into what like the life in the hospital is like, but we don't have full insight, and that's completely okay. So obviously there will be an element of cliche within our personal statement, and that might be from what you hear from other people, but just try to avoid using cliche phrases and statements. Like for example, I've always wanted to be a doctor from a young age. That's such a common one, but please try avoiding that, because even I wanted to be a doctor from a young age. Even my uncle wanted to be a doctor from a young age. Anyone can say that they wanted to be a doctor from a young age. But like, it's really important to make sure you're speaking about something that sparked your interest in medicine, and that something is personal to you, because no one can tell you why you want to be a doctor. Only you know for real why you want to be a doctor. So whatever it is that sparks your interest into medicine, please make sure you write it in a personal way, and that it really reflects in the way you write it, that it's, as you can tell, it's coming from the heart. It's not something that you're paraphrasing from someone else. Remember, like I said, no one can tell you why you want to be a doctor. So yeah, please avoid being cliche in why you want to be a doctor. The other thing is that a lot of people would say that they want to go into like overrepresented fields, like for example neurosurgery or cardiothoracic surgery, and all of these are like very, very, very overrepresented. And in your personal statement, you might say, oh my god, I really want to go into this, and that's why I want to be a doctor. So maybe I attended a workshop where I saw a surgeon connecting the vessels of the heart or doing a bypass surgery or whatever, and then you realize that, okay, yeah, I really want to be a surgeon. But actually you realize that as you go through med school, every single encounter you have will be changing your mindset, will be shaping you as a person, and will be like, you'll be coming up with a short list of fields that you don't actually want to go into anymore. And you'd be surprised that like surgery might be one of them that you might not want to go into anymore, or it could be anything, to be honest. So don't say for now that you're certain that you know a field that you want to go into, because like, number one, your mind's going to change completely, and number two, it shows your examiners or interviewers that you have a really narrow field or a narrow mindset, and you're not willing to explore other options, and that just reflects badly on you as a person. So please make sure you're not cliche with, number one, the specialties you choose, and number two, the reasons why you want to go into medicine. Yeah, and avoid using cliche phrases as well. Like for example, I've always wanted to be a doctor because I want to save lives. I want to have a prestigious field, or a reputation, or whatever it is. Those are such cliche phrases, and it's really frustrating for the people who read your personal statements to be having to read these like statements again and again, because they've read it time and again. The other thing that it comes across as cliche, and some people might tell you that it's amazing to do it this way, but it's very, very cliche, is to start your personal statement off with a quotation or a quote from a book or from a famous scientist or something like that, because number one, it's not your words. So the first line of your personal statement, you're using someone else's words, and that's not personal to you. And someone asked, what about a quote from younger you? I'm guessing this, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing this refers to something that you said as a child. I've got a quote from my year 6 yearbook. Okay, so I think so with regards to that one, it's a quote, it's a personal quote to yourself. It's a sticky one because a lot of people start their personal statements off with a quote. So if you're trying to avoid being cliche in that aspect, that you don't want to you don't want to copy someone else's personal statement, or you don't want to copy the structure of someone's personal statement, then I might be worried of staying away from that. Maybe you could try putting in somewhere within the main chunk. And also, it really depends what the quote is about and if it links in really well with your personal statement, because it's just a really sticky one. Because generally speaking, from the people that I've spoken to, the people that review personal statements, overall they prefer if it doesn't start with a quote. But if you can like link it in really well, and honestly, like I don't know what you mean by a quote from a younger you, because I don't know what you might have said and how it links in with your personal statement. But if you think that you can put it in nicely and it ties in really well, then maybe you can do it. But I would avoid starting off with a quote, because it's just cliche. Like you're trying to get away from being cliche, and that is just cliche in itself. Yeah, you could drop the quote here. But yeah, that's if you want to. But yeah, cool. So yeah, so I'm trying to avoid being cliche in loads of aspects. The other thing that a lot of people actually tend to say is that I want to be a doctor because I want to combine my interest with science and working with people together. And honestly, that's such a valuable point. I'm not undermining the point. It genuinely, like as a doctor, you will be doing just that. You'll be combining your knowledge and your experience to be combining science and helping people. But a lot of fields also do that. Like nurses do that. Paramedics do that, pharmacists do that, even people like loads of people do that actually, more than you can imagine. So if you want to say something like that, rephrase it and say how being a doctor lets you do just that, but from a different perspective. So, for example, a doctor is someone that for example, you want to combine your love for science and helping people together. And the reason why you chose to be a doctor as opposed to any other, well, why you want to be a doctor as opposed to any other healthcare professional is because doctors have like the main decision making, and you think that your personality is well suited for that, then like you're saying the exact same thing, but you're twisting it around a bit and saying that how what you want to do is kind of like linked directly to being a doctor. But again, a lot of this comes down to being cliche, so please be really careful in the way you phrase it as well. But yeah, cool. So moving on to the next point, please don't copy and paste from a thesaurus. Use simple language. They can tell. A lot of people can tell if you're using words that don't flow with the general with your general like sentence structure. So if you're using words that don't flow with your general sentence structure or the way you're generally writing, and you have like a really random word, a random sentence out of nowhere that really stands out, it's really, really, really obvious. So please make sure you're trying to avoid copying and pasting from a thesaurus. And actually, a lot of times the words that you find in the thesaurus, they might not actually make sense within the context of your writing. So yeah, so I would just advise to stay away from that completely. And also, if you write your personal statement in a certain way, like using some really high standard English, and you can't keep that up during your interview, then that really reflects badly on you because you have like two personalities. So it just kind of shows that maybe your personal statement wasn't original to you. And maybe in MMIs, this might not be too much of a problem, but if you have a panel-based interview, chances are that the people who are taking the interview will be reading from your personal statement, or they would have read your personal statement to be asking you questions in your interview. So it's a really, really sticky slope that you're signing yourself up for. So just be careful to avoid that. Use language that you understand and that you can speak about and defend. Okay, so moving on to the next point, reflect. This is key. So make sure you're reflecting. So whether it's reflecting on your personal statement or whether it's reflecting on your experiences, please make sure you're reflecting. The last thing you want to do is say that you have an experience. So for example, you shadowed someone that deals with cancer. So you shadowed an oncologist one day, and you saw how they were sequencing the genomes to find out if someone had cancer or not. And you think that was amazing because how genome sequences has advanced over time. I don't know, maybe that's a statement. Saying that, and then you might say that really sparked your interest into medicine because you feel like maybe down the line you might want to specialize into oncology, or you like how you can use medicine and science to diagnose people, to find out the pathology within the human body and stuff. Well, that's really amazing. None of that is creditable unless you reflect upon it. And the way you can reflect upon it is say how, like, number one, how science has advanced so much, and because of that, that's what you want to do. And like you feel like as a doctor, you realize that in your profession, you constantly have to be renewing your knowledge. You constantly be like having to keep up to date with everything that's being said, with everything around you. So so like that little statement at the end is the little cherry on top, and that's your reflection within the personal statement aspect. Cool. But yeah, so yeah, just make sure you're reflecting. The other thing that when you're reflecting, reflect on your personal statement, reflect on your grammar, reflect on your sentence structures. Like, are they too long? Are they too short? Are they making sense? Is it really portraying you as a person? Like, is it really a good representation of you? Because your personal statement is what the interviewers or the people who are reading your personal statement are using as a baseline to understand you as a person, to see whether you're suitable to studying medicine. And obviously, while you want to sell yourself in the best possible way to make sure that you get that seat at that med school, just make sure it's an accurate representation of you. And because like I said, the last thing you want is for them to get a wrong impression of you, and then in the interview you're not able to live up to that impression. It just reflects badly on you as a person. But yeah, so moving on to your keywords, there are a few keywords that you can be that you can be incorporating within your personal statement. A few of them are listed below, but it's not an exhaustive list, so please make sure that you're familiarizing yourself with what your med school, the one that you're applying for, is looking for. So for example, some med schools look for team working as a core skill. I know Bristol does. So please make sure you're looking at what core skills and qualities your med school is looking for. And then there's like a generic list by the GMC that there's like it's not, again, it's a provisional list that every medical student or doctor should have, the skills and qualities that they should have. A few of them are listed here. So that's like teamwork, communication, empathy, problem solving, and MDT. So MDT is multidisciplinary team. And that's basically involved everyone that's there in the care. So that could be the doctors, the nurses, it could be the porters, it could be the radiologists, it could be the pharmacist, it could be anyone. Everyone that's involved within the patient care, that's the MDT. Having an appreciation of the MDT is very, very, very important, because it shows that you know that as a doctor, you're not just going to be involved in the patient's care, but there are so many other people that you have to work with, communicate with, seek advice from to an extent. Maybe your nurse might know more about about your patient than you do, because the nurse has like a ongoing relationship with the patient. But yeah, so just make sure you have like an awareness of the MDT as well. But yeah, these are the keywords, a few of them. Please make sure you incorporate them within your personal statement, but don't just like throw them in anywhere. Please make sure you know what you're talking about, you elaborate on it, but you're adding these keywords in. So for example, if you're talking about teamwork, you can talk about a time where you've worked well within a team, and it can be on a project, it can be within your friendship squad maybe, if you were leading something within the squad, or it can be in your work experience, whatever you've done, a time where you worked within a team, say it and then reflect on it and say what you learned from it and how that will help you in your life as a medical student and as a future doctor as well. But yeah, if we move on to the next slide. Okay, cool. So these are the basics. So these are the things. So in the personal statement, the main purpose of writing a personal statement is for your interviewer or the person who's reading a personal statement is to find out more about you as a person and to find out if you're suited for that space at the medical school. Remember, there are loads and loads and loads of applicants that are applying, loads of people that want to be a doctor. So why is it that they should choose you over anybody else? Like, why should you occupy that seat, and why should they be paying so much for your training? Obviously, we're paying the tuition fees, but there's a lot that the medical school is covering as well. So why should they be paying so much to make you the future doctor of tomorrow? And this is where you tell them, or you shortlist yourself as a suitable candidate in your personal statement. So you have to tell them a bit about yourself. Tell them, like, why is it you who should get that seat? So for example, if I was to just say something about myself, I would say that, I don't know, like, I'm a very hardworking person, but I wouldn't just say that I'm a hardworking person. I would say something along the lines of, I would give an experience within my life and say that whatever the experience taught me, and then say that these are the skills that I've derived from it. And one of them is that the fact that I can work really hard to achieve what I want to achieve. So for example, I'm not going to give a personal experience here because that's just going to be me giving my life away, but I'm not going to be saying that. But it might be that you joined a research project and you were one of the few people in your research project to get 100% in that research project. And it was a really difficult research project, but you got that 100%. And the reason why you got that 100%, or you got that first, or whatever it was because you were really hardworking, you were resilient, and you knew how to prioritize your time and manage your time effectively so that you could work towards the goal that you have set yourself. So you're really determined. So all of these skills are coming from one experience. And so if I was to give this experience and say that this is what I did, so I enrolled in a research project and this is what I got out of it. But in doing so, I'm telling them a lot about myself as well, and about the skills and qualities that I have that will make me suitable to be studying medicine. And that moves on to the second point on the slide, which shows why are you perfect for medicine and why is medicine perfect for you. So I think a lot of us can say things like, I'm suitable to study medicine, and this is why I'm suitable, and this is why I should have that seat over anybody else. And then you can use the qualities to say that, but a lot of us might struggle to say why medicine is perfect for you. And this is where you have to take a step back and think, okay, so what is it that medicine will involve for me? What is it that medicine will teach me? Or what is it that I struggle on right now? But by studying medicine, I might be able to develop them further. So for example, I know that medicine is a very, very, very time-demanding field, and when I'm studying medicine, it might mean that I might have like lectures, or I might have tutorials, or workshop, or placements, or dissection, or clinical skills, or whatever it is to be attending. I might feel overwhelmed and overworked with the workload, and that's a natural part of studying medicine. However, right now, I know that I struggle with maybe saying no to people. So that might be one of my weakness. But I have been developing this further. Like, for example, when I was in charge of a project previously, I realized that there was a lot of time that I had to dedicate to a project. So I was able to say no to some motives, or say no to going out, or prioritize my time effectively. So in saying that, you're saying that this is probably one of my weakness. So you can acknowledge your weakness, and you can say that you've developed on it further as you were going, like at different like points in your life. But by studying medicine, you will be able to develop on this even further, because you know that there will be loads of times where you'll have to do so. So like, I think that part is really important. And then just be really careful. I think one thing I should highlight here is be really careful in saying yourself as a very negative person, or as having potential flaws that can't be developed. So essentially what they want from you is they want to see someone that has a realistic idea about themselves, about the career of medicine, and someone that can recognize flaws and weakness within them, but you don't use it to your disadvantage. You flip it over and you use it to your advantage, and you say that, yeah, this is the flaw within me. However, I have been working on improving this, and this is how I've been working on improving it. And I think medicine will be perfect for me, because I will have countless opportunities to practice this and to develop myself further within this field. So so the two parts that you really have to answer is, why are you perfect for medicine? So really highlight your skills and your qualities that you have, and why is medicine perfect for you? So but yeah, in doing so, just please be careful you don't portray yourself as a negative person, or as having flaws. Yeah. Okay, cool. The next point in the slide is you can use up to 4,000 characters or 47 lines of text, including spaces and blank lines. Okay, so this is really important. I know they say 4,000 characters. So when I was writing my personal statement, I struggled so much to cut it down to 4,000 characters, because I tend to write a lot. So I really, really struggled to cut it down to 4,000 characters. But when I got to 4,000 characters on the dot, I was really, really happy. Like, yes, that's it. I've got my 4,000 characters. I'm going to submit my personal statement in now. And then I went to paste it onto the UCAS website, and they wouldn't let me submit it. And I was like, but why is 4,000 characters? So the thing that you have to realize is 47 lines. So even though you do have 4,000 characters, some of your words might be like really long, and it comes onto the next line. Or some of your words might be short, and then they might take up less lines. So it really depends on your personal statement. But there might be a chance that you might have 4,000 characters, but it will come over 47 lines, and the lines are based on the UCAS website. So however they format it. So even though you have 4,000 characters, be really careful, because you might still have to cut it down even more. So I think I ended up with having 3,900 something characters. But yeah, so be prepared and be flexible to be cutting down your personal statement. I think this part is really important, and the reason why, one of the reasons potentially why they could have a cap in how many characters you have or how many words you have, is because a lot of people have a lot to say, and they really struggle to cut it down. And I know I'm one of them, and they really struggle to cut it down. So essentially what they want to see from you is that if you can organize your life, you can organize your words, your thought processes, and cut down your words and your characters to be writing a personal statement, then that reflects positively on you. Because if you flip it on the other side and say that you can't do that, then essentially as a doctor, you need to be able to be organized and stick to time limits, stick to limits, whatever the limitations that they have been given you, to meet the deadline, to meet the time limits, and also just organize yourself as a person. And if you can't be doing that, then are you really should they really trust you with having a whole patient's life within your hands? I know it seems like a hyperbole being used there, but it's actually deep. And that's what a lot of my friends and a lot of the interviewers and examiners I have been speaking to, that's what they've been saying, is that a lot of people struggle to express themselves within the word counts and the word limits that's been given, and that reflects badly on them as a person and and as a future doctor. So if you can't be doing that, then it's a bit it's a sticky one. So just make sure you keep within the character limits that they've been giving you. And on the other hand, some people might not have enough to say, which is normal, because you might not be very good with expressing yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just make sure you're not using too little characters, because then the person who's reading your personal statement might think that you weren't bothered enough to write a lot in your personal statement or to express yourself as a person. or you just have an unbothered attitude. And again, that reflects badly on you as a person as well, because the last thing you want them is to think, okay, they read the person's statement, or they see the length of it and they're like, nah, the person not explain to, like, they're not bothered to explain themselves, so we're not going to be bothered to read the person's statement either. So just be really careful about how much you write, and be careful about your sentences. So don't make them too long so that they become confusing, and don't make them too short that it looks like you're very unbothered. Obviously, you have that 1 or 2 sentences that you're making short for impact. That's completely fine. But don't be making all of your sentences short, and don't be using too many brackets either, because it shows that you weren't thinking about how you can incorporate the stuff that's within the bracket into the main chunk of your personal statement. So yeah, just be really careful about that. Cool.
Thank you. So that's from Mariam. If you have any questions on the points that Mariam has made, please feel free to ask questions on the chat. If not, I'm going to hand over to Hiba, who's going to go through the next part of the statements.